Right, so having attacked Yemen for daring to hold Israel accountable by way of blockading their shipping, the UK now faces having its own shipping blockaded if it tries to pass through the Red Sea. The limited impact of the Houthis, little more than hardening their resolve in effect to stand by Palestine as pretty much all other nations on earth turn a blind eye, with honourable exceptions such as the South Africa legal case, notwithstanding. But this stupid act, this delusion of imperial grandeur from this country will come at a price for us. When people in the UK have endured years of austerity, have seen the Tories' economic idiocy put ahead of what needed to be done during the pandemic, the fallout from that still being analysed and gone over, but also definitely led to soaring inflation and greedflation, costing us all more and more. And we're now witnessing the spectacle of both the Tories and Labour having spent millions on attacking Yemen, in lockstep with each other as they are, instead of helping the people of this country, and in the process have done something likely to lead to more price rises once again. Right, so if there's one thing all of us across whatever political divide you care to draw lines over can agree on right now, is that we're all sick of how expensive it is to get by right now. We've had austerity, thanks to the same unelected Foreign Secretary we've got now, David Cameron, from back when he was Prime Minister. We've had Brexit cause economic chaos as well. That was Dave's fault as well, but he ran away rather than dealing with that, didn't he? As all of a sudden tariffs need to be paid, don't they? Red tape is tying everything up, isn't it? And we all pay extra for that. The knock-on effects of the pandemic as well, and the stupidity of the government placing the economy before people's lives, costing people their lives as they broke the rules themselves. But having tried to open the country up before suppliers were prepared for it, consumption ended up outstripping supply and prices were driven through the roof. People had to pay it. There was a loathing on the part of suppliers across all manner of markets afterwards, from food to energy, to bring those prices down when they were able to. And the government again failed to help ordinary people by holding them to account on that. Such has been the depressing spectacle of the last more than a decade of life in the UK. So I'm sure we were all cheering Rishi Sunak handing a £2.5 billion package of our money to Volodymyr Zelensky in Ukraine last week, weren't we? Not. Just performative nonsense such as that we all end up having to pay for. Such is the case for having to spend billions more on a vanity show of military action against Yemen, taking off from an island whose people no longer want us there, in Cyprus, and achieving nothing except to piss off the Houthis directly with us, and meaning they'll now seek to block our shipping through the Red Sea too. Now, some commentators argue that the Houthis have been indiscriminate in what shipping they've stopped. That's the language of Western media, I fancy. I've not seen definitive proof of that, though have seen reports of shipping passing through the Red Sea completely untouched by them. So I'm unwilling to buy into that. But the question now needs asking, how badly is our trade now going to be screwed up, and at what cost to us? Because you know damn well this can only result in prices going up due to additional costs and likely supply issues. On a global scale, all trade from Asia, Australasia and East Africa comes through the Red Sea to get to us. So whatever goods you can think of that come from that way are now going to become more expensive. They're bound to. For example, in fuel costs alone, according to the Denmark-based shipping analyst Peter Sand, the cost of travelling around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, instead of nipping through the Suez Canal and through the Mediterranean, will add about £1 million just in additional fuel costs per ship. Those costs will get passed on to us at the tills. Food inflation in the UK, as a for instance, is still up on incomes, sitting at 6.7% on the latest figures. So still above what most of us got by way of a price rise or an income increase over 2023. That inflation level has dropped since November, but watch that swing into reverse if suppliers are unable to get goods or unwilling to risk trying to get goods to us via the Red Sea now. So what could we be looking at then, Damo? Well, look at the trade deals the Tories couldn't jump up and down about fast enough in their excitement to flip two fingers to the EU, and in order to sell a vision of economic panacea and a Brexit payoff for all of us, in favour of free trade deals they got sorted out just in the last year. Let's look at the ones just in the last year. Last May, they were singing and dancing about trade deals they'd signed with Australia and New Zealand coming into force. Do you remember that one? Now, firstly, it was a rubbish deal, but boy, did they crow about it, didn't they? Of course it was a rubbish deal. It was negotiated by Liz Truss. For the sake of undercutting our own farmers over things like lamb from New Zealand and beer and tobacco being our main imports from Australia, we got a deal worth just 0.08% of GDP. That was the minuscule gain. But now add in that factor that none of those goods can come in via the Red Sea. That deal could actually now cost this country money. The other big trade deal was joining the CPTPP block of countries, wasn't it? You remember that one? The Kemi Badenoch flying out and gurning all over the TV, the signing her trade deal, the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. This block of countries was sold to us all by the Tories as an amazing deal, but actually it only added Malaysia and Bahrain as countries we already had to have free trade deals with. All the other countries in that group we already have free trade deals with, including New Zealand and Australia. And again, they're both on the wrong side of the Red Sea. So this minuscule gain to our economy might also get wiped out. But actually, these Tories' negotiation farces are the tip of the iceberg. How much more will everything cost that happens to have made in China stamped on it, for example? This coming Christmas is a long way off, except we're still in January. Could be hilarious, though, in a bad way, as there ends up being a horrendous shortage of toys. Last year, for example, we imported £67.5 billion worth of goods from China that could now have to travel all the way around Africa. £22.3 billion worth of goods came from India, £14.4 billion worth of goods from Japan, and the list goes on and on. Of course, it works the other way too, with exports. We export billions of pounds worth of goods every year through the Red Sea as well. That if we have to send it around Africa now, we'll drive costs up, and we'll probably end up selling less of it. How will that affect businesses here? We sold £41.3 billion worth of goods to China. As a national market, as a country in and of itself, it's the sixth biggest country that we export to. £20.2 billion worth of goods exported to Hong Kong, £16 billion to India, £13.7 billion to Australia. 9 of the 10 major shipping companies are avoiding the Red Sea already. Now tankers of oil and gas are going to do likewise. The only shipping that was previously affected was Israeli. Now all these goods bound for here or leaving here are screwed up too. Gas, oil and shipping rates are already rising again, and while still below the worst heights of last year, where so many of us needed help to cover our bills, could all go up again, and shops like Tesco are warning prices as well as choice of goods will end up being affected. Well, maybe we can see off all these Houthis then. Maybe if we keep on attacking them, we'll win and preserve our own economy after this act of rampant stupidity. No, we won't. For 7 years, the Saudis, amongst the wealthiest, most well-armed of Middle Eastern nations, have tried bombing the Houthis into oblivion. The so-called rebels, accounting for some 20,000 people, that's as many as there are, and they still failed. Every time their stuff gets hit, their gear gets destroyed, the Houthis are Iran-backers, because the media cannot stop reminding us, of course, that they are Iran-backed. Just keep restocking them. The Saudis, frankly, should be called Western-backed as much as Israel should be. But you can't win here. 20 years in Afghanistan taught the West nothing, it seems, on that score. A former US Army officer called Scott Bennett was asked on Russia Today about Western forces finally stepping up and hitting back after months of the Houthis. That's how Russia Today put it to him, targeting Israeli shipping. And he said, well, they may have stepped up and hit back, but this is a fight that they will inevitably lose. The Yemenis have been the heroic leaders of the people that have risen up and actually put muscle to where their mouth is. Turkey hasn't, Egypt and Jordan and other countries have not, but the Houthis have, and they've simply said, stop the genocide of the Palestinian people, stop the genocide of women and children, stop blowing up every inch of Gaza, and we'll let ships pass by. If you don't stop this genocide, we won't let a single ship that is bound for Israel or trades with Israel or exports or imports anything to or from Israel float. Now, I take issue with him saying float. The Houthis haven't sunk anything at this point, but I think his point is no less valid. And now what he was saying about the Houthis at the time of that interview about Israel now equally applies to us. Escalation in the region over this likely could and will lead to ships being sunk, though. And at the end of the day, it has to be said, for what? For the sake of allowing Israel to continue to commit genocide? How messed up is that? Just like suppliers couldn't react to the sudden change of lockdown getting lifted, the sudden action in the Red Sea that happened overnight on Thursday to no warning, that we all woke up on last Friday morning to news of, has meant a sudden shift in global trade to suppliers has happened again, that they cannot react fast enough. If and when prices of food and fuel rise again, linked directly to this, the blame sits squarely on Sunak and Starmer for jumping when America told them to. Of course, there might be even more to it than that. Not that that helps us out economically whatsoever. But there might be an altogether shadier reason for the UK's involvement in attacking Yemen as well, which if you watch this video here next, you'll find out all about. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.